Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. I'm Jordan and welcome to today's video, which I am very excited about, where I'm going to be talking about some hidden gem, underhyped books that I have read this year that I want to spread a little bit more love to. This video is completely inspired by Ashley over at Ashley's Little Library. She did this same video on her channel and she actually put some parameters in place that I love that she did, to where she talked about all of the books that she read this year that have fewer than 2,500 ratings on Goodreads and that she rated 3 stars and above. I think this is such a fun idea to bring some hype to some underhyped books that people are missing and glossing over, that deserve more love and praise, and that we can hopefully talk about in a way to help them find their intended audience a little bit better. That is something I love to do in my reviews, and I'm so excited to bring a little bit of attention to some books that may not make it to my end of the year favorites list, but that I still do think deserve some love. And it's a little bit different of a way to do that within, you know, the end of 2024 wrap-up video content. I am going to change this just slightly for my own purposes. I'm only going to talk about the books that have fewer than 2,500 ratings, but that I gave 4 stars and above. That's mostly because I'm a little bit short on time. I'm actually currently bottle feeding my newborn, so multitasking and just time in general is at a premium around here. So I want to talk about a little bit fewer books, but also these books that I gave 4 stars, I'm even more excited to talk about, to share the love to, and to hopefully recommend to more people who are going to love these books. So let's just go ahead and get right into it. I'm going to go ahead and go in chronological order. So I went back in my Goodreads, I went through all the books that I read this year that met this criteria, and I have them in the order that I read them. The first one we have is Out of Body by Nia Davenport. This book only has 651 ratings on Goodreads, and I did give it 4 stars. This is a young adult sci-fi thriller type book about this one girl who has the ability to swap bodies, and we start this book in the character's mind or perspective that she has swapped bodies with. As she's finding out what is going on, why did this other girl swap bodies with her, and how can she get back to her regular body? This book is very twisty and entertaining. In my review, I say that it took me a little while to get invested, and I think it took me a little while to fully understand what exactly was happening. But once I was in, I was in. I also appreciated a lot of the more serious kind of social commentary that this book included. That's always something that I enjoy in books. So if any of that sounds intriguing to you, I would highly recommend it. I am glad that I read it, and I want to keep my eye out for more books that this author puts out in the future. The next book that I have on my list is The School Run by Ali Lowe. This book has 2,201 ratings on Goodreads, and again, I gave it 4 stars. This book is set in Australia, and it follows this group of mothers who all have sons who are trying to get into this prestigious, I think it's like a middle school or a high school. So they're kind of like tween age boys, but we're following the mothers and finding out basically how far they will go to get their sons into this school. And it's giving domestic thriller, kind of domestic drama, which isn't normally my cup of tea, but something about this book completely kept my attention. Maybe it's because I'm a mom myself, so there are some things that I could see, not necessarily myself doing, but I can put myself in these other mothers' shoes and understand why they're doing some of the things that they're doing. And I was just overall really pleasantly surprised by how much I enjoyed this book, so I definitely would recommend it. Again, if that general plot sounds interesting to you, it was a very entertaining read. Next, we've got Off the Record by Cameron Garrett, which has 2,270 ratings. Again, I gave it 4 stars. This is a young adult contemporary book about our main character, who is a high school student who's really interested in journalism, and she enters and ends up winning this journalism competition that allows her to go on this tour with these actors that are in this newest Hollywood film. She goes with them on their press tour and is given the opportunity to write like a magazine article about the cast in this movie. And what ends up coming up is this sort of Me Too adjacent storyline that the main character kind of has to wrestle with, whether she should expose what is going on behind the scenes at this movie set and with these actors, or whether she should just keep her mouth shut and do the article as it was assigned. So really interesting commentary. Again, this book reminded me a lot of Tiffany D. Jackson's books, and specifically Grown. If you've read and enjoyed that book, I highly recommend this one. It felt very adjacent, Grown is focused on the music industry, while this is more like the acting Hollywood industry, but a lot of similar conversations, and I really enjoyed it being through the young adult lens. I think young adult books are some of the best at having difficult conversations like these. I'm not sure why that is, but this definitely follows suit with that. So again, highly recommend it if that sounds interesting to you. I really enjoyed my time reading this book. Okay, the next book I'm so excited to talk about. It might be my favorite on this list, the closest to a 5-star book, because I actually don't have any 5-star books on this list, but it's Another First Chance by Robbie Couch. Robbie Couch is one of my favorite authors. He's written one of my all-time favorite books, If I See You Again Tomorrow, which was a 5-star book. But this one by him has only 742 ratings, which I think is a travesty. And this one is a little bit hard to explain because talking too much about the plot actually gives away some of the twists and reveals that I think are best enjoyed without knowing what they are. So I will just say that this is a young adult sort of sci-fi book, contemporary sci-fi, that also digs into a lot of very deep and emotional topics, including grief. And let's see, it's about this main character who is a boy in high school, and his best friend died 1 year ago. He was in a car accident, and ever since then our main character has been really struggling, understandably so. And in this book, the main character, since it's been a year, all I'll say is he gets the opportunity to participate in this interesting sort of psychological study happening at his high school, and interesting things happen. Again, very hard to describe, so I'm really just needing people to trust me if you like sci-fi books and you're okay with it going there in terms of deep emotions, strong interpersonal character relationships, and a little bit of an just over-the-top plot, then I think you'll enjoy this book. If your sci-fi tastes at all align with mine, I ask you to give this book a try because I really enjoyed it. And again, if you have not read If I See You Again Tomorrow, I recommend that one even more. But Robbie Couch is an auto-buy author for me at this point, and I really enjoyed this book. Also, the cover is beautiful, and I do own a signed copy of this book, so highly recommend. All right, the second to last book for me to talk about is called New Nigeria County by Claire Brown. This is an interesting one because this is actually an audio exclusive book, which I got access to through Libro FM in their ALC program. I had never heard of this book or author before. I was intrigued by the cover and basic synopsis, and I decided to just listen to it kind of on a whim one day because it's only a few hours long. And this was one of the most entertaining things I have ever listened to. It's basically a contemporary story that's I guess it would be considered satire, but it's basically a world where everything is completely backwards. Meaning, women pretty much rule the world, white people are a racial minority, queer identities are considered the norm, and it just kind of plays out like an everyday scenario of what if we lived in this type of world? What would that look like? How would that affect who's in power? How would that affect things like everyday like expressions we use and assumptions we make and things like that? It's just done in a very entertaining and comical way. There are a ton of little sound bites that I thought were just hilarious within this book, and it was a very pleasant way to spend a few hours. The full cast of narrators made it even more entertaining, and as far as I understand, I think that this author does like TikTok skits like this on a regular basis. So I'm not sure if this is one that she's done in the past or this is a new story or whatever. I was not familiar with her before going into this book, but I did just find it really funny. So I would recommend it if you're looking for an entertaining way to spend a few hours. And I don't think I mentioned, but this book has 848 total ratings on Goodreads. Again, I gave it 4 stars. And then last but not least, my final hidden gem on this list and my most recent read to fit this criteria is Find Her by Ginger Reno. This is, again, a young adult story. I think it actually might be considered middle grade. I think the main character is like 12. And her family has been going through a lot because her mother is missing. And her family is Cherokee, and this book talks a lot about the epidemic that is missing Native American women who nobody has been able to find and nobody in regular society seems to really care about. And so when we jump into this story, her mom has already been missing for a little while, and then the story kicks off when this main character is basically recruited to help find a missing pet, and that's kind of her thing in this story, is that she's able to find missing pets, but it also interweaves, again, the search for her missing mother. And this book just balanced those things really well, with the more lighthearted sort of detective search for the missing pet with the much more serious topic of her missing mother and all of the missing Indigenous women, which is absolutely a real life issue that a lot more attention should be brought to. And I think that's the thing I enjoyed the most about this book, is that it brings light to that situation and humanizes all of the people who are involved, and kind of shows how each one of those missing women leaves a huge hole in their families, and there are real people, you know, grieving the potential loss of these women and who are left just completely without answers to where their wives and mothers are. And so it was a very enlightening read, definitely a topic that I feel like I need to become a little bit more educated on and seek out more books and resources on. But I really enjoyed my experience reading this book and would highly recommend it, again, if that topic sounds interesting to you, and especially because it is in that middle grade young adult age range. It keeps the topic very approachable, but as usual discusses it in a very important and impactful way. So I loved it. This book only has 115 ratings on Goodreads. It did just come out very recently, so that of course is a contributing factor to the low number of ratings, but that is a crime and it definitely deserves more ratings. I gave it 4 stars and highly recommend it. So those are all of the books that I had on my list to talk about today. Please let me know if you have read any of these books, what your thoughts were, but more importantly, if you have not read these books yet, which is most likely the case given their low number of ratings, did I convince you to pick any of them up? Do any of them sound particularly interesting to you? And last but not least, let me know what your best hidden gem of 2024 was, or what's a book that you loved that you just don't feel like enough people are talking about. Maybe it has a low number of ratings on Goodreads, maybe you just don't hear about it talked about on BookTube, but I would love to hear your favorites so that I can get recommendations and we can all just share the love a little bit. Other than that, I don't think I have anything else, so thank you so much for watching this video, and I will see you in my next one.